All right, very topical song for what we're going through today. We're looking at Kurt Lewin and his three-step change model, and you're probably sitting there going, "Why the hell did Mr. Willard play that song at the start?" Well, let's go through and actually have a look. So, what we are looking at is a continuation of our good old friend Kurt Lewin. We looked at his driving and restraining forces first of all. Now we're looking at how do we go about once we've done that process. So, just to give you a bit of a background, why we looked at the force field analysis is we looked at if the change is worthwhile occurring. We look at the things that are going to drive and the things that are going to stop the change. Now we're looking at actually how to complete a change. And the reason why we had the good old song by Frozen is his three-step change model has three main things about it. First of all, unfreeze. So we're looking at to go through and unfreeze the current state that we're working through. So just basically the current situation that we're living through. Then we're going to go through and change, and then we're going to refreeze and put in place the change that we've gone through and done. So how do we go through and do that? Let's have a look at each of the steps. So very first step is unfreeze. So we know businesses often find change difficult, normally because the employees struggle to go through and change. So basically unfreezing is going through, getting our business ready for the process to change. It's about that preparation. So what do we do during that process? We identify what needs to change. What area of our business is not doing well? And we'll usually normally use key performance indicators to do that and go through and do it. Then we're going to go through and create urgency by demonstrating a need for change. We're going to show the reasons why we change. How do we do that? That's our driving forces. We go through, we show why we're changing, we get a lot of people on board, and we start to go through and do it. Then what we do from there, we challenge the people that are going to resist the change. So what we do, we look at our restraining forces. We look at the areas that people are going to resist it, and then we go through and we try and win them over to our side or change their mind towards that process. This is normally the most hardest part because people are normally stuck in their way through that organizational inertia. So we need to go through, and if we unfreeze the whole situation properly and get people on board, that's where it's going to make the next stages a lot easier. So next stage is change. This is when we go through and we start the process of moving towards where we want to go. So during this stage we need to make sure that we are fully open and communicating to our main source of stakeholders. They need to be aware of why we're changing, what's the purpose of the change, and all of those things. After that stage, we're going to support the people that are struggling. So for an example, if we're going to implementing technology, a lot of people don't really respond to that. So we're going to put things in place to make sure that they find the change easier to deal with. What we also need to go through and do is that we need to empower people. So we want to go through and get everyone else on board. So we want everyone to start to take change. We need to put resources towards it, and we need to make sure everything's going to happen. So let's go through and have a look at the mobile phone ban that happened. Yeah. Once people were aware of the change, we started the driving forces and the restraining forces in unfree stage, the change, the school started to put resources towards that. We started to communicate with parents, families, teachers, so that way everyone's aware. Then started to support people that might be struggling with this. So if there's a parents that go, well, I can't call my kid and all those sort of things, there were strategies put in place to go through and rectify that. Then there was resources put towards it. The school invested in money to go through and store people's phones when they got confiscated. So that was a really key thing and ensured that there was a process to follow, so that way if a student refused to give their phone or if the things were done the wrong way, people were able to go through and follow that accordingly. Okay, so that's the change. Once we go through and change, it's really important to go through and refreeze that process. So what this is basically is that we wanted to stick to our business's culture and remain there a long term. So how do we do that? We constantly support and train people to that new way of thinking. Mainly because at the start, it's really easy to go through and get a lot of people on board. But if we don't constantly keep it in our frame of mind, keep working at it and everything like that, it's normally easy for people to revert back to their old ways and just go back to that status quo and everything from there. What also is important, this whole idea about adjustments are made where necessary. We might find that some parts of it aren't working. sort of change. So we may make little changes to everything overall. Okay, so it might be that originally there's only one team leader to go through and confiscate the phones. They realize that wasn't working, so they've gone through and put multiple people during that phone process to ensure there's enough people to support it all. Okay, so that hopefully that goes through and that makes a lot of sense. I've accidentally spoiled the next key knowledge point by me moving. I'm going to put up the questions now. Other than that, keep going, guys.